That's the forward side of the tank. And I got the fuel pumped out of there. I think I got most of it. I bet I got like 90% of it or more. I'm gonna start working on pulling the engine. And I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get rid of the raw water intake first. I'm gonna get rid of the water pump here. I'm not using that anymore. Get rid of some of these lines. Then I'll go for small pieces. I'll go for the alternator. I'll start pulling hoses off and so forth. And then I'll pull off the fuel filter here, or I guess it's a water separator. I've got a fuel filter here, fuel filter here. Hopefully I'll be able to, from gravity, I'll be able to catch any remaining fuel in these lines and not get it all over the place. I do have some engine diapers that I'll put down here. I'm going to try, again, I'm going to get rid of more hoses, including the seacock that no longer needs to be there. And I'm going to try to keep it as drip free as possible, but I do have oil in the engine I need to remove, and I have oil in the transmission and V-drive fluids that I need to remove. Well, I want to take the V-drive off by itself. Have one problem with one nut. This guy right here. It is rounded. I even put a box end on it. I got all the other nuts off. This is the last one. So I don't really want to do an angle grinder here in the engine compartment, but on the transmission, I was actually able to loosen 3 of the 4 hex bolts. And so I am going to loosen the bottom one, and then yeah, I'll take the transmission along with the V-drive out at the same time. Well, that was the way to go, definitely. Just pulling the transmission off and not worrying about separating the V-drive. I was able to hoist out the V-drive attached to the transmission, and the next thing is to drain all the fluids from well, the remaining fluids, which really is, let's think about this. The remaining fluids is the water separator, the fuel filter, another fuel filter, fuel lines, injectors, of course the intake, the fuel intake. I have removed the fuel filters, the water separator. It's slowly coming along, piece by piece, getting rid of the engine. I'm hoping to get the flywheel, and I'm hoping to get the starter off, but I can basically lift this and maneuver this by myself. So it'll be nothing to get this out once I'm done. The only thing remaining is the block. I've got the fuel tank, and it will come right through the engine access hatch. On a Cape Dory 30, that is how you will get the fuel tank out. So here's the engine. Everything, as stated, has been removed that can be removed, and we have lashed some line to it so that we can hoist it out.
Got the hoisting tackle rigged up, and the engine is well stripped down, so it's quite light now. Got a come along up to a beam to initially hoist it and get it clear of the engine compartment. Then we'll reconnect. And we've got a second come along here with Benjamin at the end to lift on the beam and drag the engine forward. Now that we've got the engine pulled forward out of the compartment, we set it down, and we're going to reconnect to a higher hitching point in the shed here. And if the boat still had the mast up, we could use the boom for hoisting point. Okay, we've switched our tackle over to these and lowered it from the shed beam down to the ground and going to the recycle yard.
To be delivered to its final resting place.
Oh, I'm going to use some of this.
So out of here, there was, I should have shown it before I cut it out, but you can kind of see the footprint of it. And what it was a horizontal shelf, and it's where the original house and engine battery banks, where it turned into where I put the lithium ion. And then here, there was a shelf that held the refrigeration compressor, and now they're both gone, and there is unbelievable space in here on the starboard side, and then on the port side where the tank used to be, that is now gone, and there is additional space cleared up on this side as well. Well, this used to be the icebox and galley utensil drawers, and a little storage space under here. I've since, of course, taken the counter off and discovered that there's a thin fiberglass liner, which I knew about, but then between it is some foam and then an exterior liner. All of that will come out, including this vertical board, and in its place over here between this side and up to this blue tape will be a top access fridge freezer, and over here it will go down to the hull, much like here. I've removed all the liner to the hull, and that's where a battery bank will be located. Gotten the shaft seal off of the propeller shaft. Here I will get the diameter of, that's 1 inch, of the propeller shaft, and I will try to get the diameter here of the aperture, and that's what I need to know to get a new, going to do a dripless, to get a new dripless gland. Is that what it is? Is that a gland? That I don't know. I think it's not a word. As I remove this adhesive backed foam non-skid decking material, I have discovered that as I pull, it will sometimes tear, and of course that will just spread through the rest of it and make pulling it up again a little more challenging. And on a whim at the hardware store, I picked up a blade for my oscillating tool after I had ripped some of this up, and thought, well, maybe this blade could provide some functionality, some utility in recovering these parts that get torn. And it has worked really, really well. And it'll just pick this right back up for me, and I'll be able to continue to pull. Just like that. Blade is just a flat, non-toothed scraping blade, and that's really it. But it has proven invaluable for this job. It is the day before I depart, and I just wanted to recap what had been done in my absence. The toilet exhaust in the head has been run through this new framing and locker on the port side here with a locking latch. Also, it has been pushed back, the toilet that is. Originally, when I installed this toilet, I was disappointed by the lack of foot space whilst in the seated position. And now, with it pushed back, I think more than a couple inches, I'm feeling much better about having foot space. There was no foot space at all where it was, and it was really uncomfortable to pull your feet back, and you were leaning forward too much. And this is a nice seated position for when I decide to use it instead of the bucket and chuck it method. So, in addition to pushing this back and creating this, a shelf has been created in the locker, and previously this was actually a hanging locker and it wasn't very useful. The liner has been pulled out as well, which is great because that gets as much space back as possible. So on the starboard side, same treatment has been done. However, this is the hanging locker, and I really love my hanging locker. It's something that I am used to and works for me. Where I had the bar before was up here for the hangers, and that meant that I had to buy these little children's sized hangers, and it was a compromise because things just fell off of these hangers all the time. James, on his own volition, thought, why would you have these bars here when you can't fit a full-size hanger? And moved the bar down and further outboard after this remodel on the starboard locker, and it works much better. There used to be a little vanity here with a couple shelves and a little divider in between. Made absolutely no sense. You could barely put anything in there. And one of the other bonus things about this is the ability now to get under and do an inspection. These are removable, and again, the liner has been pulled out so you can inspect chain plates and so on. And of course, this nice two-part epoxy has been applied to both port and starboard. That said, what else has happened while I was here? Well, again, pulled the Galley fridge completely out down to the hole, liner included. It's likely that 48-volt batteries are going to go there. The other item that's been done, the diesel fuel tank has been pulled out of there. The diesel engine has been pulled out of there. And the cockpit lockers are now large and clean and free. The final item that I did was I cleaned out the starboard cockpit locker and removed two shelves that had been built in. One for the refrigerator compressor, and then the other shelf was just for house and battery banks, and those are both been removed. Oh, and one more thing I did is all of the non-skid foam that I had installed has been removed. One more item that was accomplished while I've been away has been the port side galley lockers here. Specifically removing the liner here so inspection can be accomplished on deck to joint and stanchions, and also, all this space here is now usable. There's been a drain hole incorporated, and all of it has been painted with white 2-part epoxy paint. And that is just a ton of room that was just a void before that can now be used. And both sides have gotten the same treatment, fore and aft. So, really quite fantastic. Really excited about that. Big heavy dry goods go down there, like sacks of rice, other stuff. And then, last but not least, is the new stove. And it lifts up into its gimbal position, drops down into its seated position. And then underneath that, where in my original stove, where there was an oven that I never used, underneath that is nice locker space. So basically, utensils, look at that, how awesome that is. And nice removable divider. And again, all the exciting items that can be stored in here, whereas before it was just a confined space within a confined space. And all of this wood is teak trim and teak veneer, and so it will, once I put some epipens on it, it will look just like the rest of the teak throughout the cabin. Another one of my requests was to have more bilge access. And what James had come up with, because in the past, the only access I had was this teeny little hatch right here. And I mean, that is not even, yeah, that's maybe a foot in length and less so wide. And so what James came up with was to glass this in to the existing sole and then cut around the sole and create a larger access, and not only do it once but twice. And so I can open this up here. If I lift and turn, I have full bilge access. The panel is captivated on one end by a bar of aluminum, and on the other end, when you turn and then drop the ring into the receptacle, it effectively locks that in place. So now it cannot come up. And things that I don't mind getting a little wet, I can store them down here. Also, the chain locker drains through this hose, through this first compartment of the bilge and into the main bilge. And there is the valve for the hose that goes from the chain locker.